norms and stereotypes to making sure that the butts are white. Boy, girl, mom and dad want grown-up time, you're going mad. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too. Money, 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 money. Money. I swear I always start an episode with a song, but that's kind of just how my brain works.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So today we are talking about money.
Yep. Cha-ching.
Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be a good episode to talk about today because this will be the last episode that drops before Labor Day, which is the first Monday in September. And Labor Day actually celebrates the American Labor Union. So we're going to celebrate Labor Day by talking about work and money.
Yeah, it connects. Sure.
On your day off, but
Sure.
This is before the day off, so you can adequately prepare. But also, before we get into it, just know that Nick and I are not financial advisors.
Correct. Not even
right?
close.
And this is not financial advice. We're just having a conversation about money.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cha-ching.
Yep. So, also the TIFF today, it's not really a TIFF, but so it goes with this segment as well. And the TIFF is, do you wear white after Labor Day?
That's the tip?
Yeah. I just want to know what people do. Yeah, but I think that it's a thing of the past now. And
wearing white after Labor Day?
Yeah. No. Sorry.
I was messing with
to not wear white after Labor Day. That's how I grew up, but it wasn't a hard and fast rule. And by the way, I'm from Texas, so definitely different than California, especially being in Southern California. I feel like it's always kind of a beachy feel year round, and that white is definitely one year round.
When do you think the first time I heard the phrase "don't wear white after Labor Day" is?
From me.
Not from you. Good guess.
At Baylor.
In Texas is the answer.
Yeah.
So after
Nick's not from
California.
Texas originally. He's from California.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember it?
Well, no, I'm just saying it wasn't, to your point, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it's more, I'll talk about kind of the history of it in a second, but it's more of kind of nostalgic for me because the way I think some people follow Memorial Day instead of Labor Day, but we would wear white starting at Easter. And then we would put away white at Labor Day. So around March or April to September. And right before Easter, we would just go and get new white shoes to wear to church for Easter. And so it's nostalgic for me. Now, the history of it is not great because it was definitely based in classism as a way to separate the upper class from the working class, because the upper class could afford to wash the dirt out of their clothes. And they would go to, the beach and wear it on holidays and then come back. No, it's not actually. It's absolutely not. But that is the history. And then it kind of just went into I think, a lot of things that history is lost with it. But
it's become part of the culture.
It's become part of the culture without knowing what it was based
I don't think it's
in.
that common anymore, though.
You're right. I don't think it's common either. Also, there are lines like the winter white is very popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I think cream, that's something that you'd wear in winter that I did grow up wearing in winter. We just didn't wear white shoes, really. It was just the white shoes.
Yeah.
And then some people also follow a rule of a time for patent leather versus regular leather within that. I know. I'm just saying, a little interesting facts here. Okay. So I don't really follow that anymore is my point. I do enjoy a good winter white and cream, but I really more follow the fabrics. So I'm not really going to wear linen in November unless I'm on a holiday.
I mean, it's before Labor Day right now and you're wearing a white tank top. So well done. You're following the rule. I have white pants on.
Yeah. Yours, actually, those are my khaki cream. You're okay.
They don't count?
They don't count as white.
Okay.
And this I would wear year round too, even when I was, following that
Your
rule.
headphones are white.
My headphones are white. So are yours. Anyway, so I just wanted to know if anybody still follows that. It's not a real tip. Nick obviously doesn't follow it. You also don't. You're funny in the sense that you will grab things in the closet without looking at the weather. And I'm like, dude, you're going to be hot today.
I probably look at the weather half the time. If I have a feeling that it's around the time when storms are coming or when it's going to be super cold or super hot, I'll look to confirm. But it's been the same temperature for 3.5 weeks here at least. And just before that was 5 degrees colder. It's not that.
You're right. You're right. Here
in Texas, I checked it every day.
Yeah. Okay.
Here,
Yeah, but I will say though, this week it's been a little bit cooler with the storm rolling in.
Yeah, like 5 degrees cooler.
I don't know. That's very different to me than the
I guess
heat
it's going to
we
be
were
75
feeling
today.
Yeah, and it's going
it
to be 90 next week. So
it does get close to 90 or 95 here.
Yeah, it does. It does. And we don't have.
We were humbled in our first apartment.
Yeah, I just thought people lied to me and were like, "Oh, it's 75 year round." And when you don't have central AC, that's a little bit different.
Yep.
Okay, so we're kind of done with that, Tiff. But I have something for you.
This is what you went to get.
Yeah, gonna read it to everybody.
Beard King Deluxe Beard Bib Hair Clippings Catcher. You know when somebody gives you a gift and it's not really a gift as much as it is like, hey, here's something I don't like that you do.
To be honest,
here's how we fix it.
To be honest, I feel a little bit like the mayor in The Grinch when he gives the Grinch the gift of a Christmas shave.
Yes.
That's a little bit what I feel like, but I feel like it'll be cool for us, you know? Collect the beard trimmings and you just dump it right in the trash.
Is this an ad?
No, it's not an ad. I bought that.
This is hilarious.
Well, I mean, I know not. Somebody could have gifted to me and it's still not an ad if we're going to get technical, but no, I bought that. No one told me to. And actually, I remember, I think I mentioned it on our TIFF, I think whatever that was, TIFF that we talked about it, but I remember them being on Shark Tank. Yeah.
I've seen it. I like it. Thank you.
So maybe we'll do a little video and show y'all how it works.
Unrelated note, I got some Tupperware organizers that I'm going to send you.
Great. I'd love that.
Yeah.
I'd love it. I think you're trying to mess with me and it just doesn't.
Not at all. No. Now I see what we're doing for gifts and I've got things to get.
Good. Please don't buy me a vacuum. But you would honestly buy yourself a vacuum. You have bought yourself a vacuum.
And I am the one that uses it. So
He is. We know our roles. Okay. Let's dive in today into this money topic. And this was actually a request from the audience. So if you have a topic you want us to cover, it doesn't have to be a full-blown topic. It could be a question. If you have topics you want us to cover, let us know. We're happy to do it.
Send a carrier pigeon, a messenger, over, whatever.
Or you can DM us at boygirlmom.com or send us an email at hello@boygirlmom.com.
Yep. Private messages on MySpace and Zanga are accepted as well.
I don't have those, so you can try to message Nick.
I haven't been able to get into my MySpace account for 10 years.
Have you tried?
Yeah. Well, not like recently, but every time it comes up in conversation, I try. Because I think it's connected to my old Baylor email address. I don't know.
Are you trying to go back in and put me in your top 8?
I don't think I ever did a top 8.
The answer is yes.
That was the answer. Is I don't do top 8s, then it's not yes.
You didn't do a top 8? Who were you? Everybody did a top. I mean, I say that I did not have a MySpace.
Here's the thing with top 8s. I had more than 8 friends.
Okay. 8 best friends? It wasn't. You can have more than that.
I think
it was to let people know where they stood.
I think I stopped using it. I didn't use it that much. But I think I stopped using it prior to the 8 feature or like right when that came out.
But there was different. You could do top 15. I think I don't remember there was a top 5. I never really
did that.
Yeah. You just got in there and coded. What was your song?
I mean.
What was your song? Do you remember?
I had emo songs everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? I had some MCR.
And tonight will be the night.
I think I had Dashboard Confessional, which is not
classic.
Super emo.
No, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway. Let's forget MySpace, which I didn't even have, and go into talking about money. And
we're just going to allowed to have it?
Yeah, I was not allowed to have anything until I think I was maybe the summer before my junior year of high school. I was allowed to get Facebook. I had to wait.
I was only allowed to use the internet if I logged onto AOL. But after that, when we got cable, my parents didn't really know how to moderate anything. So
yeah, and you're a little
MySpace, Zanga. Yeah, and I was a nerd from early on, so I figured things out pretty quick.
I did have AIM, AOL Instant Messenger.
I had AIM, yeah.
So I did have that starting in middle school.
I remember sitting in my parents' bedroom on the what was it, Gateway computer. Do you remember the Gateway computers that had cow things all over the desktops? The towers.
Yeah.
And I would log on, listen to the noise, and I was on AIM. That's all I did.
We had a family, it wasn't a playroom. It was like my mom's craft closet where her sewing machine was. And then also kind of a guest room. And then also where we had a desk with a computer. And then my dad had an office. And so sometimes we would, my senior year of high school, I basically kicked my dad out of his office and he sat at a card table and I would sit at his computer desk. Because I think we, for some reason, had moved the computer out of the other room and didn't have one in there. But yeah. Anyway, I think we can move on.
Let's do it.
Move on into the episode. And so basically today we're going to talk about, just to kind of set you up for how we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about money as a couple, tips for money with kids, and then random money saving tips. I think that's and money growing up. That's what we're going to start with. So anyway, I realize this is a privileged statement, but I don't really remember wanting for anything when I grew up, but I definitely wasn't allowed to just have whatever I wanted, which I'm thankful for, because that just has a lot of impacts to you socially, mentally, all of that. Yeah. So, but I did get an allowance. Did you get an allowance?
I did get, well, so what do you mean you weren't wanting for anything? Because I feel like
no,
you
I mean,
have
I was,
that
I
expensive
had
stuff that you needed.
Say it again.
You didn't really. My guess is that you didn't need or want any expensive things.
I don't mean that. I mean, what I mean is, like, I had a roof over my head. I had food. I had the basic needs covered. And sure, there were things that I wanted. Like, everybody had Fat Farm shoes, and I didn't have any.
You wanted Fat Farm shoes?
Well, everybody had them. I don't know.
That's why you wanted them?
And what was is it Etnies or
Etnies,
yeah, I didn't have those.
Skater, so.
I had
not a good one.
I had Adidas, or should I say Adidas, that's when and when I was in middle school, the stripes, the 3 stripe ones, I forgot what they're called, like not Superstar, but something like that, came in, and I had strawberry shortcake laces. It's kind of that time period whenever it's like, oh, this was for babies, but it's cool again, nostalgia. And I did lace them Skater. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I had Converse that I would lace Skater to. So that just means they're all parallel versus X'd, if you're unfamiliar.
Yeah. It's just backwards lacing is all it is, basically.
Sure, backwards lacing.
Yeah,
but
you're right. It wasn't called that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's what I mean.
I was just clarifying what you meant.
There were things that obviously that I wanted, but I didn't.
When I hear the expression want for anything, I think of like somebody who can buy luxury, everything, trips, whenever they want.
Oh, I don't think of it like that, but maybe I used it wrong.
We probably just think of it differently. Okay. So I get what you're saying. And you got an allowance or no?
I did get an allowance. I was actually talking with my parents before this episode, and they were like, I don't remember what we did, but what I recall is I got, I think, $1 a week, maybe it up to a little bit higher when I was older. Like $10 or something was monthly. I think they sat us down and like had a different conversation. But I don't really remember having set things to do. Obviously we would help, not obviously, but we would help my mom, set the table. And I think maybe we cleaned the cat litter. I don't really recall, but within that allowance, my parents were very intentional with, okay, here's $1. Let's just talk about it for me as a younger child. Here's $1. And then we'd take a dime and put it in savings and like a piggy bank or whatnot. And then take another dime and give it at church. So tithe, which the definition of tithing is basically giving back. I think biblically it's speaking, it's at least 10%. And so that was a show of 10% of what I had to give. That's what I remember regarding allowance.
We got allowance. I don't know that it was linked directly to chores, and I don't know that it was taken away for chores. I think I remember it being maybe taken away a few times as punishment for things like,
I mean, I never got in trouble, so I don't know, but
right. Which I don't think was super common, but we did work for things. Like there would be opportunities at home for mom or dad to give us money if we did a specific thing that was outside of our normal chore responsibilities. So it wasn't normal everyday things, but like there was a time where if I mowed the lawn, I would get X amount of money. I don't remember what it was. Before that became part of my responsibilities. But like things like cleaning your room and cleaning the litter box and stuff like that, those were rotating, but they were standard responsibilities.
Between you and your sisters?
And they weren't linked to the allowance, I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't say that allowance is controversial, but people have different opinions on it. I don't know that we haven't really talked about it with Cypress and Olive. I think that it is something that's good that we can talk about later when we talk about actually the kids at another part in this episode. But be thinking about your opinion on giving Cypress and Olive a allowance.
So something I've thought about a lot with allowance, I know you're not asking me right now, is how does it link to the real world? I think the money management piece is helpful, but getting the allowance, I think, might not be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't want to do it. I'm just saying, like, I can see a parallel to getting paid for doing something in the real world. I don't see a parallel for being given money because you exist.
Yeah.
Especially in this
Let's talk about it in the other part of the episode because I have more opinion too. Yeah. We have a different section that I want to talk about this because this is more so just about us.
I thought you were talking about a different episode.
No. Sorry. When we talk about with kids, we're going to talk about it. Okay. And so I already know the answer to this, but did you work as, like, when did you start working?
Are you, yeah, as a kid. I was encouraged to work not only at home, but to get a job. I wouldn't say super pressured to do so, but it was just very clear with me specifically that, like, as I got to a certain age, if I wanted things, I paid for them. So my family was supporting me. So is this 14
or 16 or? I think you can be 14 and work at Chick-fil-A. I think other places.
Well, so there's a difference here between an actual hourly rate job and like working for somebody else. So for example, like when I was, I think 13 or 14, like right after I got to Texas, I was mowing lawns around the neighborhood and it was like my little business. Like I had rates for a specific size of yards. I had people who were regular customers and they were paying me. So like I was working, but I wasn't filing taxes or like getting a paycheck, if you will.
Yeah. Actually, I wish I had it to reference right now, but whenever Nick's parents cleaned out their garage a couple of years ago and your box of stuff, we found your rates, like your lawn mowing business rates. It was really cute.
Yeah.
Okay. So
business plan, baby.
We know that you mowed the lawn, but when did you start a job? When did you go work?
15, probably end of 14, maybe.
And that was at, do you want to say
at a certain establishment that shall not be named.
Really? Okay.
It's fine to.
No, you don't have to say it.
It's Chili's.
Why? Okay.
It's a fine dining institution. They're very exclusive. I don't want to, blow up
And you
spot.
Started as a host, right?
Started as
and
a
then
host.
You went to
Which the minimum age is supposed to be, I think, 16 at the time. And I was like, hey, I would love to work there. And I just used some charisma and it just worked out.
Yeah. And you started as a host and then you're a waiter and then you moved up to bartender or no?
Host, waiter. We called it a server. Host, server.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Bartender.
And QA.
I did QA for a while. I did to go. I was all over.
Yeah.
I did some like interim manager shifts.
Yeah. And this was, I'm just trying to remember.
I was head trainer for a while of the service.
This was you had to buy your car, right? I
did have to buy my car.
But that's when you were encouraged to go start working so you could save for that, or?
It was, I obviously couldn't drive then. It was well understood that if I wanted to buy a car or buy things outside of keeping me alive at home, I needed to make that money.
Yeah. But your sisters worked too, right? Like, I feel like I remember some of the places, or at least one of the places, one of them worked. And they worked when my point is that they worked when they were in high school as well, right?
Do you remember where that? Because I don't.
I do, but I wasn't going to say it to protect their privacy.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's not a big deal. It's not a weird place. I just wasn't going to, they haven't consented to be in this episode, so I wasn't going to talk about it.
We all worked, to your point.
Yeah. So my answer is that I didn't work. I didn't have a job until I graduated high school. And that summer before college, my dad was like, you should go get a job. And I got a job at, do you remember? Trivia about my life. You're right. Delia's. So you may remember that if you grew up in the 90s, or maybe, I don't know, if you're a millennial, you'll probably remember it. It was first just a catalog business.
We're Gen Z. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it could be nostalgic for Gen Z, but they maybe wore the, there was probably an overlap of Gen Z, but they only remember the store. So it was a catalog at first, and then there was a store. And I have a late birthday. So I didn't turn 18 till right before I went to college, like a month, or maybe my birthday's in August. And so then you start college right then. So I just fresh turned 18. So I was 17 when I got the job. I remember going in and they basically hired me on the spot, and they wanted me to come in and train on some date in May. And I was like, I have graduation that day. And they were like, oh, but that's why I remember when it was exactly. And I would work there, and then I'd work every summer when I came home from college there, if I came home.
So we had different work experiences.
Right. My dad was very specific, and my mom agreed with him. They weren't split on that decision, but he said, your school is your job. I want you to go to school and focus on school. So I didn't have a job in high school, and I didn't have a job while I was at college either. I would work in the summers. And that was kind of my fun money, if you will.
Do you have an opinion on that for Sipey Olive?
I like the fact that I could focus on school, but I'm not against getting a job, but I also want them to have a childhood. I don't know. I could be probably swayed either way. I enjoyed not having to have a job during those things, but I understand that it instills things. But on the flip side, like, I have a very good work ethic, and so I wasn't just bumming around being lazy. I was, not that people who don't have jobs are, but I was very useful with my time. I graduated college early. I don't think I would have been able to do that if I had a job. So I could be swayed either way. And I think it could, I don't know. I think it also depends on the personality. I don't know.
Okay. I think it's good and healthy for them to work if they want to work when they're kids, not kids, still in our house, right? So like before they go to college, I guess. Mm-hmm. I would encourage them, if they wanted to work somewhere that was interesting to them, not just a place to get money.
Yeah, I like it.
So, rock climbing gym, fashion store they like, right?
Yeah.
Like I ended up loving restaurants, but I didn't go work at Chili's because you
got a discount?
Well, that was a benefit. But yeah, I didn't like go there because it was a passion area of mine. I went there because I wanted to make money, and that was a place to make money.
Yeah.
And I don't want that relationship that early on with money with work to be instilled in them.
I think that's a good point. I definitely worked retail because I studied apparel merchandising, and it definitely fed into my background, and I think, or what is now my background. And it made me appreciate what I was doing. I've worked full circuit. I've done retail, I've done wholesale, I've done production. So I've basically seen it all. And I feel like it was very specific in what I was doing. Plus I worked there because I got a good discount, and I like to buy clothes anyway. So it was helpful.
Helpful or enabling.
Say it again.
Helpful or enabling.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I bought way more triple dippers and chicken crispers than I needed to. Okay. Because I had a discount.
Yeah. I like the idea of finding out what they like or don't like, think they like something and be like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. But I will say, I was thinking back to, okay, what was the first time I earned money? And I know you said you would do mow lawns, and this isn't the same, but I remember my family having garage sales, specifically my papa and my grandfather. And I, for some reason, thought, and I did sell them, but I was like, people will want to buy the bracelets I make. So I made a bunch of friendship bracelets, and I remember I pinned them to, maybe it was a foam board. And I wish I remembered what I sold them for. But, I had just the regular 3 horizontal one that was the cheapest. And I had the chevron, or you do the chevron when you do like the knots that are in a circle, like in the middle of the chevron. So that was, I think, the first thing I really sold on my entrepreneurial spirit. I think I had a couple
had a lot of those
lemonade stands, things like that.
Pause for coffee pouring noise.
Okay. Today, Nick. No, I was going to say today, Nick is not drinking Folgers. He is drinking, I forgot, I have to look where the beans are from, but it's from Onyx. We are using a Commentier pod in our fellow Big Joe mug, and he poured it a second cup from his fellow Carter Move mug that fits in the cup holder and keeps your coffee hot for days.
Brands and model names.
Hey, people.
I'm not saying it's bad. It's just funny.
Yeah.
We speak differently.
Oh.
I didn't think nothing's wrong with it. Don't get offended. I'm not upset.
I'm not offended.
It's just what I would have said is like, I'm drinking a great cup of coffee in a big cup. That's
okay.
What I would have said.
Well, it's basically my job to
I know
not
it doesn't
sell
help
things,
anybody.
But yeah. I will link everything for you in the show notes. You're welcome.
Please do that.
They're great products. Okay, let's go into money as a couple. So when we got married, or before we got married, we did marriage counseling. And one of the big chunks of that is finances. Money is one of the biggest fights for a couple. And so it was important that we did marriage.
Money can be the source of some of the biggest
Sure.
fights.
Yeah. Now you're getting all specific. You don't want to be specific with your coffee, but now you're being very specific. So we would recommend marriage counseling prior to getting married. Some people even do it before they get engaged. We were engaged when we did it, but a big chunk of it was finances, which we think is important just because, like Nick so eloquently clarified, money can be one of the main sources of fighting among couples. And that's the first time I think we really talked about money. We talked about debt. We talked about budget, like what our bank account and stuff looked like. And I feel like it's a good idea to be on the same page when you're going into that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would recommend it, whether you do it. We did like Christian premarital counseling, but there's a bunch of different types, a bunch of different places that offer it. I would for sure do it. Sounds more of a like marriage advice than does finance advice, but I guess it's both. The things that I think we had some like strong conversations and fights as a result of that, but it was good to have them early as opposed to when we were married. Because, we hadn't thought through like our strategy was spending, our strategy was saving, which has changed since then, but we didn't know each other's thinking on it. And also I had more student debt than you thought I did. I didn't know you had some that your parents were helping with, blah, blah, blah. So all the and how much, like you said, we had in our bank accounts, like all that information was good to have and good to at least understand if you're not exactly on the same page with each other before moving forward.
Yeah. And something to discuss in that is that I will also pair it as a question right now is, do we share a bank account?
I mean, yeah, I
we
don't know
do.
if you're asking me. Yeah.
No, yeah, I was just pausing. We do share a bank account. I know not everybody does. I think that you just need to be on the same page about stuff. As far as us, that made the most sense for us. And there are still I think I still have one. The main one that you moved to was yours that became ours, but then I still have one that you're now on that we kept for other reasons. But as far as making sure that we are, accomplishing financial goals and things like that, it was important for us to be on the same page, and we operate as a family unit, whole paycheck versus, I pay for things and Nick pays for things.
Yeah.
What we use now for budgeting, because we didn't really have a budget when we first got married, which would have been beneficial.
We didn't have a budget for a while when we were married.
Yeah. To our detriment. But it's good to have, and it sounds like it's not fun, but you can kind of view it as a game. And you're trying to, it feels like it's holding you down, but there's freedom within it, and you can, live within the boundaries of what's good and play the long game. But what we use is YNAB. You need a budget. Do you want to talk about it at all?
YNAB.com. I mean, it's a basic budgeting app, but it's great. I used to use Quicken. It's too robust for what we needed. And wasn't at the time web-based, but YNAB is good. Integrates with all your stuff, all your financial accounts and assets and everything, credit card companies, all that. And links them to your budget categories as you define them as a couple. This is something that I would like to help instill in them, in the babies, when they get a little older and start having their own money. I don't really know how and how early I want to do that, but I think it's pretty well understood now that the kids who grew up in our generation and a little bit before, for the most part, didn't really have the opportunity to get basic financial training, in school. Some families focused on it, which is good, but we didn't have any of that. So understanding how much taxes you're going to pay, how to pay taxes, setting up any version of a basic budget. I'm thinking of how to apply this to kids. Those are things I want to talk to them about.
Definitely. That's in our tips for money with kids section, but happy to bring that up. And I actually wrote that down. I said, why isn't there a required budgeting class? I remember in 5th grade learning how to write checks, and which do we need to do that anymore? I don't know. It's still a valuable asset, but skill. Thank you. But I remember after we learned how to write checks, we went to a place called Enterprise City, which I think it's in Richardson, Texas, and everybody had a job, and I was t-shirt shop manager, and you got paid for your job. Some people were my employees. We had a mayor, we had police officers, there was the food court, and you got to take breaks. It was cool. I really have a good memory.
This is through what?
School.
Oh, school.
My good old public school.
Yeah,
and it taught you how to go like deposit your checks at the bank for your paycheck. And, you didn't want your check to bounce. Did you have enough money to buy that? I bought what I wanted to buy was, it was like a Cat in the hat that was green and yellow.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to buy. And that's what I bought with my paycheck.
Sure.
There were things you could get fined for.
What percentage of your paycheck was that?
I don't remember.
Probably high.
But I worked there, so I think I got a discount. I was the manager, right? So I remember that, but there's not really, maybe there is now, but there's not really, to your point, a basic budgeting class that I think should be in high school, that should be required.
Yeah. I think some private places do it.
Yeah.
But regardless, like whether it's the school doing it or not, I would like them to understand it a bit. Yeah.
So back to YNAB, that's what we use to budget, and it can be a daunting task, but I just finished the book Fair Play by Eve, I forget her name, and it talks about dealing out cards of tasks. And so that is a card that Nick carries. And the whole premise of the book is to make sure that one person isn't holding too many cards. And it's not about, splitting it 50-50, because what's equal is not always fair, and what's fair is not always equal. And then also, the cards don't have equal time spent. So you could have 20 cards and your partner has 80, but they still kind of equal out time-wise. So anyway, Nick holds that card for us, and so he does it. And then we try to meet every Sunday evening to just go over the budget for the week / how we fared the previous week and where we're at in certain things. And for me, it's really helpful just to see where we're at. I feel like I go rogue when I don't know where we're at. And so I would suggest having a budget meeting. And maybe if you don't have shared bank accounts, or if it's really daunting, just set aside that time together where you tally up your spending and then they tally up theirs. And then you can kind of go from there to where it's a joint effort.
So YNAB and a lot of other big budget platforms, they account for more than one account. Or can handle rather. So
yeah.
To your point, regardless of your situation, it can work out.
Yeah. And then we keep notes on our phone. We kind of use it as a family meeting as well. And we keep notes on our phone like, oh, did I need to make sure that return got back in our bank account, or we need to remember to reach out to the insurance company or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
list.
It's also just a good time to align on goals and remember why. Like, okay, it was annoying. I couldn't buy that dress I wanted to this week, but we're saving for this trip. And so just kind of reminding yourself of the why.
We also started to use that language like, do you want this more than a house?
Yeah.
Or do you want this more than Europe?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I was just going to mention within this that about life insurance, again, not financial advice, but something to consider. We changed ours whenever we were expecting the twins, just so that kind of adjusted. Just something to look into and consider that obviously you pay towards, but it's good. And then the last thing in this section I want to talk about, I had a conversation with some friends here in LA about it the other week, about what's your rich life, which is taken from the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And basically it helps you define goals. So I would need to go back to the book, but there's 3. It's like the most close to goal that could happen now, then what is like your middle of the road goal, and then what's like your stretch goal. And just it's imagining what you want and helping you again think about your money matters in a better way of like, you're saving for this, like what can you implement now, what do you want to implement, and what's your dream implementation. And it's just, I think, a good resource and stuff to have to think about versus the now. We live in such a need it now microwave society where convenience is everything. And I think convenience is important, but it has caused us to not take a pause and just think, wait, do I really need this? Am I going to have buyer's remorse? Do I want something more? And I just would encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah. And also money is easier to get access to. Lines of credit are easier to get access to than in the past, so quickly and online. And, it's not easy to understand what you can afford when it's easy to get money that's not really yours yet. And then things keep getting more expensive, but you don't really feel it because you're paying with credit. So be careful.
Yeah. And we'll go into that into more detail in just a moment. in this next section, which is tips for money with kids. So like we kind of already talked about, why isn't there a required budgeting class within school these days? And so these are things that we have thought about or people have recommended to us that can basically, obviously you can have your own. I've seen moms specifically will have these how to be a human class. Well, they'll teach during the summer, like, okay, here's how you make a grilled cheese. Here's how you wash your clothes. This is how you start the dishwasher. And you could
Here's when you use a plate instead of a paper towel. Here's when you wipe down the counter.
Paper towel plate.
Stop.
Paper towel plate. Life is great with the paper towel plate. Okay, you can go back and listen to that tiff. I forgot what episode it's on, but it's a great one. Sometimes I use a paper towel as a plate. Anyway, this could be something that you sit down and teach your kids. And I think it'd be something that you will gradually teach over time. And then there are ways to, quote, dumb it down, for lack of a better word, to where when they're smaller, they can start to grasp it, but not overloading them with the dirty details of.
Are you still talking about the human class you lost?
No, sorry, about budgeting and things like that. Yes, it could be in the how to be a human class, but just, implementing strategies earlier with your child when they're young and then building on that. So it's kind of what people call the drip method of like a little bit at throughout versus all at once. And
you're saying start talking about money early.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So this first tip came from actually the person who recommended or requested this episode. Do you want to talk about it? Because it was your request.
Yeah. So someone I work with talked about how she has raised her son around money. And it was a short conversation, but I really liked what she said. She talked about how early on, I don't remember how early, she started talking about choices with money as intentional choices as opposed to restrictions. So kind of similar to what you said with budgeting, where it's not, you can't do this. It's you're choosing to do something else later. So her language that she used with her son and saw fruit in and heard him use by himself is say, hey, we're choosing to spend our money here instead of saying no or instead of denying something. So I don't remember the exact scenario, but like she referenced a story where somebody offered something to her kid, and like something he would have had to spend his own money on. And he said, oh no, thank you. I'm choosing to spend my money on this, which was something else. Mm. And I like that thinking of, it's kind of back to the like house in Europe thing for us. It's like, It's not a
house in Europe, but buying a house Europe. And our trip for Europe.
Yeah. One day manifest it.
Kind of like how we have been using it, like instead of buying something like, hey, do you want to order main chick on DoorDash, or would we rather have the leftover chicken in our fridge and save the money and put it towards a house or put it towards Europe? Is that what you mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. An intentional choice as opposed to a restriction. Yeah. So it's not, I can't do this. It's I'm choosing to do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like it. Okay. The next little thing is just about allowance, and I think that allowance is good. I think I'm pro allowance. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. I think it could be, it could be a dime, that when they're younger, that is something that is pretty minimal. And you can actually, I feel like seeing the pennies of like, okay, here's 10 cents. Here's a penny we're putting into savings. Here's a penny we're going to give. And then you can actually, I think a kid can probably see it grow and like understand like, okay, there's more in this pile now and things like that.
So you're pro allowance? I
think so, but it doesn't have to be an exorbitant amount. I think also the other thing I really like is, that my parents taught me to tithe. And if that's not something you do, if you don't go to a church or a place of worship, you can show them to be generous as well. And I think that's a big thing. Whenever I would pray every night, whenever I was pregnant, specifically like the prayers while I was pregnant, I would always pray that Cypress and Olive would be generous, because I feel like it is a good trait to have. And obviously it can be taken advantage of, but I think a generous heart is just something that develops over time and is just such a good characteristic.
They give each other stuff right now. I think
they do.
I think your prayers have been answered already. They give each other oatmeal, pieces of food. They bring each other toys they like.
Yeah.
And what's really cute right now is they'll bring each other something and then they'll say thank you before the other person gets a chance to say thank you. Like Olive will give some oatmeal to Cypress and she'll say, thank you.
Yeah.
Like I think thanking herself. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not, like I said earlier, I don't know about allowance. I like the money management piece. I don't love the money appears piece. And I'm not necessarily saying let's put our kids to work early or anything. It's just like, I think if we're going to do an allowance, I would like for it to be connected to something that they earned.
Yeah, I think more so what I was talking about is like when I'm fine with that. I think that I'm fine with it being connected to work. I think some people also have an opinion about allowance that they don't like it to be connected to work because they would just be helping around the house and they don't like it when a kid associates with like, well, I'm not setting the table unless I get paid type of thing. So I think it's a delicate line to balance. But I think as a younger child who's not, I mean, you can have them, you know, right now I have the twins put their diapers in the trash or go throw away their pouch instead of just handing it to me. And so there's little things like that. I think that instilling the money mindset in them young, I'm okay with it not necessarily being connected to something, but I'm also agree, you know, I don't really like money just appearing out of anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I think a place where it might be different is like, hey, it still, you know, kind of appears out of nowhere, but it's like, this is the money this is your fun money. And so you can do with this whatever you want, but mom and I or dad and I are not going to be buying you that toy you want or whatever. This is like your money that you can save. So kind of giving it to them to, you know, instead of the parent buying the toy or whatever, it's like, yeah, you can have the toy, but that comes out of your money. Do you have enough money to pay for that now? So kind of managing, I don't know. We can talk about it. I'm open.
Yeah. Yeah. Good thoughts.
Something that my dad had me do, which I loved, and it was just really fun, probably because I like to do things with my hands where my brain doesn't have to think and that I'm not necessarily, you know, right now it's like I don't really want to stare at a computer. So like I'll sew something or make something. I think growing up I would do it always watching TV, but he would have me roll change. So, you know, like the papers that you can like put in, you know, it's like $10 of quarters, which now like haunts me because we not so much anymore because we use rents, but we still do an occasional load of towels here where we have to buy the rolls of quarters. I'm like, this is a nightmare. I used to have fun with this. But anyway, I would roll up the change myself. So like, okay, here's $10 of quarters. This is what that looks like. And I forget how much the increments of the pennies, dimes, nickels, all that. But that was fun for me. And it definitely taught me about, you know, this is what this money looks like and just, you know, doing the math.
Yeah.
Because I remember my dad doing math with me, like with the, you know, a nickel plus a penny type thing. Mm-hmm. I also had a very hard time learning how to read an analog clock. And so he made
lost art.
It wasn't like a paper plate. Maybe it was, or he cut out a poster board and then had a thumb or a brad in the middle with the hands. And he would, before I go to bed, I don't know if I did 1 or 3 or 5, but he would like change the time and I would have to tell him what time it was before I went to bed.
That's funny.
But anyway, that's just a fun way, I think, to implement it like for a kid when they don't even realize really what they're doing.
Yeah.
We're talking about saving money today, and I wanted to bring up a way that everyone can save money. I assume that most people will wash their face, sometimes with just water, but also sometimes with soap. And so facial washes can be expensive. And so I wanted to talk about Primarily Pure, and they have facial bars that are $16.
And last for a long time.
Right. They'll last you for basically an entire year. It's suggested to use within 6 months to 12 months of purchase and use. But they'll last you for basically the whole year. And we have a discount code for you, bringing it down to under $15 for face wash for the entire year.
Yeah, I usually hate soap bars because they're like slimy and weird, but this doesn't feel that way.
No, it doesn't. I do leave it on a little soap tray. They have a baby bar, which we use on the twins. Right now we're using the soothing bar. They have a clarifying bar, and I'm forgetting one, but I'll link them all for you in the show notes. And it'd just be a great way to save money. And actually, it's better for the environment too, because you're not having any one-use or single-use plastic. So try out Primarily Pure. Use our code BGMAD for 15% off, and let us know what you think.
BGMAD. Go get it.
We kind of already talked about this. I have thoughts on work, ? Do our kids work? And we kind of already had this conversation. I think it's a good a skill to have, but I don't know if they should work in high school. And also for me in high school, I had so many extracurricular activities. I don't know how I would have had time to work because I got to school at, I think it was 6 a.m. And then I would often have practice, whether it was for dance or for choir. Like one day in the afternoon, we had afternoon choir practice. One day we had afternoon dance practice. And then I did a dance class outside of school. And was there something else that I did? But like, I don't know. And with the amount of homework that I had, I just wouldn't have had time to do it. I guess you make time what you have to have time for, but I don't think I would have been able to do it.
So I think if it's something that you want to do that's work, you're going to make time for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to pressure them, but I don't think being busy is a reason to not work. Because they're busy with a bunch of other things in their lives.
Right. I'm just talking about high school specifically.
Sure, but is that not a metaphor for how it's going to be in the real world?
Yeah.
Like, so I'll ask you this. You're busy with work and with parenting right now.
Mm-hmm.
Should you not have something else that you want to do, whether it makes you money or not? Like, is that a reason for you to not
Whether it makes
try?
me money or not is a question mark for me, because literally I think choir practice was on Monday after school. I literally would have one night a week I think I could have worked, and I had extreme amounts of homework with the classes that I took. And then football games were on Friday. I often had to be at football games on Thursday when I like freshman year for JV. But
I'm understanding that you're saying it would have been tough for you in your situation. What I'm saying is that as an excuse for your kid for, no, I can't work, I've got so much going on. I think that's an unhealthy relationship with work. Like a comparison is like, if they were doing rock climbing or working at Delia's because they wanted to do fashion merchandising or whatever, as compared to being a host somewhere where they didn't care about the restaurant industry. Like my thing is probably a burden to their schedule. The other thing would be, oh, maybe I am taking too many dance things and I actually care more about clothes, or maybe I'm, whatever. Like they don't get to make those choices if we're just saying, oh, you're too busy to work. Because I just don't feel like life gives you an opportunity when you're an adult to be too busy to work.
Sure. But the key word I think for me you just used was adult. And in high school, I want them to have a high school experience. I'm not saying don't
work. But we're
work.
training them to be adults.
I know, but they're not an adult yet. I can see having a job in college, but I don't know. I didn't do many extra. I mean, I took piano until I was, I don't know when I quit. Maybe my freshman year of high school, I quit. But those extra practices were with classes I took at school. So like we had the choir class I had during class. We also had an after school in like, what's this? It's the spring season. I forget what it's called. It's not concert season. It's, I don't know. It'll come to me. But we had certain things we would go to and sing at for, not awards, but we were rated. The word is escaping me. So I just don't know. Maybe it's the school I went to is more rigorous, but like.
I had a lot of things too.
I'm not saying you weren't. I'm just saying like the things that I did, like your main thing was football. And so that took up, how did you practice? Like when did you practice?
But I guess I'm not understanding the point, because what it sounds like you're saying is if you have too many things to do, don't work.
No, I'm saying in high school, I would not have had time to work.
But true or false, if you had a job that was interesting to you and wanted to make money, you would have sacrificed in one of those other areas.
But I couldn't have, those were classes I took at school. I couldn't have
classes you chose to take. I chose to play football, which came with it, the extra practices, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is like, I'm not telling you we should tell our kids, oh, you have to work and you have to pick how to make time for working. I want work to not be a scary thing that hits them in the face when they get out of college or don't go to college and get out of high school. So presenting it as like, hey, you can also make money doing this thing that you like. Maybe go to these gyms or try this thing or whatever. And they get to choose their time distribution.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe that time distribution means they're not working in high school, which is completely fine. I'm not recommending that we force them to. But I think subsequently saying, oh, you're too busy with all your personal stuff.
But it's not personal. It's school. They're in school. I think to answer your question, if there's something that they really like that they want to do, that will present itself and they will make time for that. But I just don't want to say like, you have to go get a job when that's
what I just said.
15.
I don't want to force them to either. But it sounded like you're recommending be busy with the stuff that you're doing at school and you
No.
won't have time.
I'm just saying I would not, sure they were classes I chose, but I would not have had time to have a job given the rigorous class schedule I had and the classes I chose, I guess. I would not have had time, but maybe Saturday, my parents wouldn't have allowed me to work on a Sunday. There were times in the summer where I was slotted at work sometimes to work that, but I always asked off for Sunday just because of church. So I really could have worked maybe one night a week and then one on Saturdays, not in competition season.
So yeah, I think we're talking about our experiences as opposed to what we want for them.
Yeah, well, and I would like for them to have a, God willing, like high school experience where they don't have to worry about that yet.
Sure. So if they get out of high school and don't have any experience with work, is that okay for you?
I think that that's how I was. And I had a job really right then when I graduated high school, just working retail that summer. And that I had other things I did that I volunteered. I had experience, but I hadn't held, a job at Chili's or whatever.
I don't think you've answered my question.
I'm fine with that. I think it worked out for me fine, but I think that it also depends on the child.
Okay, so different question. If they found something they wanted to do that was a job and it fit within their class schedule and extracurricular schedule, would you be okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like you're saying you wouldn't. That's what I'm trying to dig
It sounds like
into.
you're saying they have to.
No, I
not
explicitly
be a kid.
said I don't want to force them to work. I just don't want it to be a, hey, you can't do this until, because that I think sets them up for failure. The same way that forcing them to do something they don't want to do just to have a job would set them up for failure.
Yeah, it just sounded like you're like that was your choice to make those. When I was talking about my high school experience, that it was my fault.
Okay, let me present you. No. There's no fault I'm assigning to anybody here at all. When they're adults, they're going to be able to choose the things they do in their personal time based on whether they're able to work and make enough money to support those habits. So I think while they're being trained in high school, especially with their extracurriculars, they're being trained to do things that could turn into jobs. It's not exactly going to be that way. I feel like we're talking about instilling working for money and managing your money well as a kid, but it also kind of feels like we're saying if you're too busy, don't do it.
No, I'm not saying that. Okay. It's not like I was picking up all these extracurriculars. Those were school things that I did. And so maybe I was too busy and I had a very rigorous schedule, but I think that was just the schooling that I was in. Yeah, I don't know. As you can see, we talk about this in real time. We don't necessarily go into it outside of, so we disagree on things sometimes, and that's okay.
Would you consider compensating them for their extra work outside of school for like extracurriculars?
I don't understand the question. Would I consider paying
them? Okay, so if they're doing what you did, they have a lot of extracurriculars and don't have time for a job, they're putting extra work in outside of school. So to promote money management and to honor that work, would you give them an allowance or payment based on the hard work they're doing for those extracurricular things?
No.
Okay. I think it's going to be difficult to instill any education or value in earning money if we don't let them do it until the end of school. I think that's going to be tough.
I think that, people can get jobs in the summers if that's something that they want to learn. I think that I learned in a lot of ways that wasn't necessarily paid. And I don't know. That's why I said I think it's differing like per child.
So let me give you a contrasting situation. So some people have their kids work early because they need the money for the family, right? So those people are very early thrown into work and don't get to make the decision of, I want to do extra things before and after school because they don't have the time in the opposite direction. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is choosing to do things before and after school, regardless of whether they're connected to classes, is a position of privilege. And are we unintentionally telling them that's okay without instilling you need to work to be able to do these things? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's why I said, God willing, I would like for them to have what I would consider like a good height, not good, that's the wrong word. I don't want them to grow up too fast. And I'm not saying they can't work. I'm just saying like that's something like I would protect for them. Now I will say that my high school did have I forgot what they call it, a work program where I think when you were a junior, maybe it was just a senior, they had it to where you could actually, I think you got we had a blocked A-B schedule and you got the last 2 periods to go and work. Mm-hmm. So some people did that.
Yeah. I mean, my school had jobs at school that students could hold, mm-hmm. and they would get paid fair wages for those jobs. Mm-hmm. There was a partnership between, I think there was a training class in high school, and some people could go like work at a local gym, as part of their class credit with personal trainers, and they would also get paid. So I think I'm trying to blend. Like, I don't want to force them into full-time work or anything. What I'm saying is it would be nice for them to see, oh, I can do something in or out of my passion areas and get money for it, and then learn how to manage the money, as opposed to just, I can do all the things I want to do and not worry about money. I think that's what I worry about, is that we're overcorrecting in one direction.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that I turned out good and I didn't.
Of course you did. And I think you're taking offense to
No,
what
I'm not
saying.
taking offense. I feel like very protective over them and I want them, I don't know.
So am I, which is why I don't want them to get out of school and not understand that they need to earn their money.
I don't know. I had friends who had summer jobs. They would go be a lifeguard. They would go do something and they would make money that way. I think that there are time periods to do it. And if they want to do it, that's fine. But I don't want them to not be able to do something like dance or choir because we're saying they need to, I feel like, grow up too fast and go have a job pending that we can pay for everything we need to pay for everything. Now with these preschool prices in LA, they need to get to work now. But mm-hmm. I don't know. I think we need to move on to the next thing and just kind of agree to disagree. And I don't know that we'll come to the same side on this podcast episode.
We only have like 14 years to figure it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyway, feel free to let us know your opinion and how it went for you, or what you're planning to do, or how you felt about how you were raised. Okay. The next one is kind of, I don't know, I feel like it actually goes in well with what you're saying. I worked with a girl, hi Rachel, if you're listening, who I used to work with, and she said she grew up on a farm and they didn't have, extra money to buy things. I don't want to say frivolous things, but in this case, it was an American Girl doll that she really wanted. And so her parents made her go and, I don't know that shuck the corn is the right word, but go and help harvest and stuff, help out on the farm. And she got, paid in credit for each thing she did. And they had a chart that she could, color in. And once she had made enough money doing that work on the farm, she got to have an American Girl doll. And I feel like that is a great way of saying, like, you can't just get things. You have to earn things. You have to work for things in a way that helped the parents and their family business, but then also, had her appreciate how, how to make money, how to save, and know that you can't just go and get something.
I mean, you could do that with your business when they get older.
Yeah.
Not necessarily have them as a personal assistant or anything, but just like there are tasks that you can have them do and get money for.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I'm like, in my head, if there are things that they can do that still allow them to have a full high school experience, that's still like learning how to make money, and they can't just, get everything that they want. It just, money comes from places. It doesn't grow on trees. I feel like that's a good way to do it. Mm-hmm. A kind of plug into that we've talked about before is Hearth. We have not gotten ours yet, but we have it on order, and it's basically a device. Think of it like a really big iPad or like a frame TV that lives on your wall, and it's a scheduler. It connects with all of your calendars. Then they also have other features that I think not with money specifically, but you can, like chore charts and things like that can be used for allowance or whatever. Just wanted to kind of plug that as an option. I think that they aren't doing pre-orders anymore. They do different cycles, but I will put the link there just so you can learn about it and maybe get a notification for when they do allow another pre-order.
Yeah, they're cool.
Another thing that I've seen multiple people do is they'll take their child to the dollar store or something like that and give them a small amount of money, like $5 or $10, and be like, okay, pick out some things you like. You can do whatever you want. This is the money you have to do it.
Yeah, that's good. I think that this isn't the subject of this podcast, but the family meeting I think would be really cool in the future too. Cause you can, like I think I sent you podcasts about this. Was it Brene Brown that does this? Where like there's a weekly point of in this meeting of like encourage somebody in the family or like here's something that made me frustrated or something.
You can always do that at the dinner table too, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, there's like pits and cherries and stuff too, but like I like the intention of weekly family maintenance as opposed to daily. So like saying, oh, what was a good and weird part of your day is different than saying like, okay, here are things we're doing as a family. Like, is there something does this chore structure work out for you? Or like, what is something we're doing as parents that's frustrating you guys right now?
Adjustments,
like, they're a little bit different and wider than the dinner conversations.
Yeah, I think that there's good checkpoints at the beginning of the week and at the end of the week. So I like for beginning of the week, we'll do, go over the calendar and make sure everybody knows what's coming up this week and make sure that we're all clear on, especially with the hearth display. Just to check in to make sure we're all on the same page. And, there will be weeks where it probably won't happen, but I always feel better when we have our family meeting. So I think it would translate into kids as well.
Yep.
The next little tidbit I wrote down with kids is that credit cards aren't bad. I remember that my parents were oddly specific with this when I was growing up. And I think maybe it was in an era where people were understanding how you could abuse credit cards, because I had a lot of friends be like, oh, credit cards are bad. And my parents said, credit cards aren't bad, but they can be misused. And so very much like, you pay it off. Which I think, Nick, you wanted to talk about charge cards versus credit cards.
Yeah, I don't have like a specific opinion on this, but there is an opportunity to have charge cards with available, like it's not credit, but like available credit limits on them. So your kids like are enabled to use them if they need to, like for emergencies or whatever else. But it also, charge cards you have to pay off within that month, and you can't carry a balance typically on them. A lot of some of the American Express cards are this way. Chase has these. There's a lot of people that have them. So teaching them that credit isn't bad, but also showing like, hey, this isn't something you can just spend money you're not paying for perpetually. It's a good thought.
Yeah. And it's along those lines. I remember, I think it was in high school, and if you're from Garland, which is where I'm from, I think, is it Centerville Road? I don't remember, but it's where there was a Cece's Pizza, a Blockbuster, and I think an Albertsons. And then they built on in the parking lot, and they built a, I'll say what it is in a second, but I said I wanted something to my mom, and she was like, how are you going to pay for that? And I'm like, I'm going to go to the cash store because the cash store had just been built in that parking lot, which is essentially like a payday advance. And she was like, don't ever go there just because of how much money they tack on top of the payday advance.
Yeah.
But it was so funny how, she could say over here, credit cards aren't bad, which I know that they're different, but be like so kind of chill about credit cards, but like, don't go to the cash advance store, which is just like funny. It's something we laugh about now.
Yeah.
Another tip for money but money with kids, I guess your money kind of does revolve around your kids once you have them, is just something to think about are special accounts, credit cards. There's the UGMA or UGMA account. There are
529
college fund. Is that the college fund? Mm-hmm. There are just certain things to research as options that could help your child out in the future. I don't really know a lot. This also isn't financial advice, so I don't know, but also I haven't done a ton of research on it either.
Yeah. The headline is try and save for your kids if you can. The other things like the UGMA and 529 and all these others, there are deferred saving options that are like either tax deferred or tax free, depending on the account you pick. Similar to like a 401k where you can save and give it to them without having to pay taxes on those dollars up to a specific number. So,
yeah. And obviously keyword being, if you can. I know we all come from different backgrounds, different families. And one of the, I guess ignorant is the right word, comments that I made, I was talking to someone who I worked with them at the time, but I was talking with them and I said something like they had brought up that their wife, they were trying to do a wedding budget and just saving for their kids for wedding budgets. And I was like, oh, well, you only have one girl, so you only have to pay for one wedding. And he said, no, we're going to save for both. My wife didn't have like a quote wedding budget. They actually end up eloping. which I think is so fun. And Nick and I think we would have some form of elopement. I think family would be there, but if we did it again, we would do something like that.
Yeah.
And I think I would have been similar to this at the time. I didn't have Cypress and all, but just like, okay, here's money allotment. And yes, traditionally, historically, the bride's family pays for the wedding. There's a lot of different things that occurs today where someone may not have the budget, traditionally I'm saying a lot of so I'm not even nervous. Maybe I'm nervous because I'm talking about gender stereotypes and roles, but the groom's family typically pays for the rehearsal dinner. The bride's family traditionally pays for the wedding. So there's a lot of different things within that, and saving for your kids if you can, be even. And I don't even know where I was going with all this. I'm kind of scatterbrained. But do you get what I'm saying? Can you translate for me? I
think you're saying saving is important and choose what you want to like earmark that money for in the future, but at least it's for your kid.
Yeah, but also I think knowing that not everybody can, I think is just what I'm saying.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I think that people can, right? Like it's, the question is, are you living outside of your means? Mm-hmm. So you get to choose if it's important to you to save. You get to choose if it's important to you to save for your kids, mm-hmm. and what you have available to spend outside of that mm-hmm. is dependent on the first decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, going into a more personal topic, Nick wanted to talk about student loans, all that type of deal.
I don't remember what my point was.
So the point is that you felt like you had access to money. And I think to kind of go into, and we can cut this if you don't want this, but to kind of go into it of, I was going to say that my parents paid for my school and you had access to loan. Like, so I knew about the loans. But I didn't really know about them because I wasn't the one signing up for them, even though some were in my name or the Parent Plus loan. But you were actively signing up for the loans and you felt like you had way too much access to the money without knowing really what that meant, student loans and stuff today.
Yes. So I hope it's going to change by the time our kids go to college, access to this kind of money. But whether you're going to college, private college, wherever you're going, it's expensive. It's getting more expensive. And currently, it's way too easy, in my opinion, to get money to go if you don't already have it. Not to say that funding options shouldn't be available, but there are like things like scholarships and work for education programs and things that are not typically the first choice as compared to student loans. So I got a bunch of student loans. The expectation set was that I would handle them myself. And I don't think that I understood the impact that it would have on my adult life. Agreeing to receive, in my case, what was north of $250,000 of student loans over 4.5 to 5 years. So I would say I want to be intentional about whether we even use something like that for our kids and saddle them with it. I mean, my parents, one of their gifts to me for graduation was to help me with that, and they've helped me a significant amount. But I think it's been a burden on all of us. So choosing to use, and it goes back to credit, like choosing to use those things just because they're available, we need to really examine whether that's going to be beneficial for them later in life and examine other options to allow them to get education if they need it, further education, without just dipping into a big, easy bucket of money.
Yeah. And you said, whenever you're talking about this outline, you were saying that it would have had I don't think you said it now, but have a healthier relationship with money and
yeah, I mean, I think it was way too easy to get that money for me. It came directly to me. I spent it on rent and, living expenses, but I had much more than I needed after tuition, which, I chose the amount I needed, but still, like, I don't think I shouldn't have been able to, in my opinion, get as much money as I got, and be able to, I wasn't living a lavish lifestyle or anything, but like, I was not what?
No, I'll say it in a second.
I was not, working, to make money to pay for my housing. I didn't have an understanding of where that money was coming from and how it would impact me
later
in
college,
life.
Though.
Yeah, but I worked in college to have extra money to do more fun things. I didn't work with the understanding that that money was going towards rent and towards pieces of my life it needed to. I was deferring that expense with my loan funds to later in life.
And I think that that's what I meant earlier in our discussion about having a job in high school, is that not that you did anything wrong, so don't hear me say that, but I feel like if they're going to learn, like, oh, have a job to pay for fun things, then there needs to be a balance of pay for fun things, but also, you know, save so you can do fun things in the future, right?
For sure.
And as far as what I was going to say about Nick saying he didn't live a lavish lifestyle, I don't know that there's a lavish lifestyle in Waco, Texas, but his rent was double mine. And I didn't know him in college, but I do know that his rent was at least double mine. And this was in the, I guess, it's not early aughts. That's what I keep wanting to say, but it's like 2010s. So whatever you consider that, you know, my rent, I think the most it was maybe $425 or $475 a month. My sophomore year apartment was, I think, and this was with a roommate. My sophomore year, I had one roommate, and it was around $300 a month for rent. And I think, Nick, when you lived in LL Sam's, what was it, $600-$700?
Yeah,
so
that was like a massive loft and a bunch of amenities, and I didn't need it. But I mean, that was less expensive than what I paid on campus.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that included meals too, though, right? But you didn't really eat
meal plans
them?
were separate.
Oh.
Meal plans were separate than my tuition. And
no, they were separate, but I thought maybe you got a disc. I don't know.
Not as part of lodging. No, or not lodging. Housing is what they called it.
Or it was the bear bucks or whatever that they included. Like you get X amount of bear bucks.
They included it, but you paid.
Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah.
I was going to say scholarships, and I felt I got merit scholarships for school, and then I also applied to every single one I could. And I didn't get accepted for all of them, but I did get accepted for a lot. And, a lot of them were piecemeal, but it paid for textbooks or something, and so that's just another way you never know what you'll be, will be accessible to you that you'll qualify for, is my point.
So what you're saying is pursue those before you pursue credit and loans.
Sure. You don't always know what you're going to get. I feel like sometimes it's a tighter timeline. I guess the merit scholarships.
I'm saying you're recommending to go for the scholarships.
Yeah.
I am agreeing with that. I'm saying to connect that to the loans point, you should do that before you figure out how much you want to take out of a loan.
Sure.
If you even want to take
I'm just saying sometimes you don't know what you're getting scholarship wise. Whenever I got my acceptance, you get whatever merit you were awarded. So I did know that. And so that did affect that. But the other stuff I think was pretty minimal compared to that. So I don't know that it will line up correctly with what scholarships you get with what loans, but I could see how that's confusing with what you just related it to with the loans and to knowing it before you get the loans.
Okay. So there are scholarships for each school, which are significant depending on your application status, right? There's also individual scholarships.
Right.
What I'm saying is pursue all options for free money. Scholarships are free money.
Yeah.
Some of them have tiny stipulations, but they're usually performance related and not anything you have to pay back.
Right.
So pursue that, which I'm agreeing with that recommendation. Pursue that heavily before you pursue any other financial option, inclusive of your parents paying, relatives paying, you doing deferred payments, anything. Because your total is reduced by how much scholarship you get.
I guess since I wasn't the one applying for the loans, what I'm saying is I don't know how close you can apply for the loans and get accepted, how close to the school year or whatever.
Close.
Okay. Well,
Very
thank
close.
you. Okay, so there you have it.
A week. Ask the procrastinator.
Oh, I just got anxious for you.
Here's the thing too, and this is what frustrates me about student loans. They intentionally make it very fast for you to be able to get funding. So that they can get more loans. More loans means more money and more interest for them over time.
Okay.
So they remove the barrier of that timeline.
Yeah. Okay. Yuck.
It is yucky. I agree.
I texted my parents yesterday about this, knowing that we would have this episode. And I was like, was there anything that I forgot that you did or that you wish that you would have done?
You texted them about what?
This episode.
Got it.
To see if there's anything that they would have done differently or forgot that they did. And my dad said I would have probably done, I think we did this, but I probably done this more early on and more frequently to give the child a certain amount of money per week or month that they would buy toys with, etc., instead of the parent buying it for them. So teaching them how to save for something that they want, which again, I feel like that they did do that. And then he said, and to learn about tax, toy is $30 plus tax, need to save for more than one more week. And I told him I feel like they did this. I remember counting out my cash or whatever that was in my piggy bank and then going to the Hallmark store to buy not the Beanie Babies, which I did have, but the plush ones that were a little bit bigger. I forgot what they called them, but I would spend my money on those for some reason. Dumb. But, they brought me joy at the time. I also remember, this is a funny story. If there was a trip, which I didn't do a ton of them, but in 7th and 8th grade, I took Spanish. That's the first time you could take it as an elective. It was basically fed to you or in other school classes since I want to say since 2nd grade at least, and that you took it, and then everybody took it in 6th grade, but you got to choose to continue on. So I did take Spanish in 7th and 8th grade, and actually all through high school I took it in college. But I remember going on a trip to San Antonio, which being from Texas, it's not super close. It's actually a pretty long drive, like as far as traffic that builds up, like 5 hours or so to San Antonio. See the Alamo, Riverwalk, all that stuff. Speak Spanish. And I remember them, I think they gave me, like, this is what you can use for a souvenir to buy for the trip, like while you're on the trip.
To purchase a souvenir?
Yeah, to purchase a souvenir. And I was always looked for sales. I like to get good deals. I like to search for them. It's kind of like a fun sport for me. And we went to the stores around the Riverwalk, and we went to Aeropostale or however you say it. And
I've never heard anybody say Aeropostale.
I think that's the correct way to say it, but we all said Aeropostale.
Aeropostale. That's what I said.
And there was this one sweatshirt that was on sale, and I was like, it's only $50. I got it for $25. And we all have matchy ones. Like, I got a pink one. My friend Lizelle got an orange one. And then my friend Taylor got the blue one. And I bring it home, and it said like Paradise Cove. And then underneath it in little letters, it said, life's a beach. And my mom was like, you can't wear that. And I was like, what? It doesn't say anything bad. And she's like, it says life's a beach. And so she wanted me to return it. But instead of returning it, she sewed on it in little, like, to cover up the B and made it a P. And so it said life's a peach. But my point is that I wasn't just giving, like, I had friends who would go to the mall, and like every time they went to the mall, they had $25 or $50 just given to them. That was not my lifestyle. But when it was a special event or something like this trip, I was given that to spend, and I got to choose how I spent it. And I bought it on a Aeropostale sweatshirt.
Love that.
Okay, so I wanted to give a little bit more tips, because for a little bit more of tips for like random money saving with kids. I feel like everything that I see online is kind of over my head, and like not everybody can do that. Like the stuff that's hire your kid as an employee, or save them $500 a month. I'm like, not everybody can do that. And so these are just little random things I thought about. So I'd love to hear from y'all if you have something that is a way that you save money. But one of the things I asked if y'all had any questions on Instagram, and a listener said that anything with kid on it is usually more expensive than adult. And a lot of times they have the same ingredients. So obviously check the ingredients. But for this specifically, she buys the adult eczema lotion instead of the kid version, because the adult is cheaper and it has the same exact ingredients. So something to think about in regard to that.
Pay extra attention with that, with medicine. Just because you're saying eczema lotion, or check with a doctor. But in general, I'm with you.
For sure. Another thing I've seen people say that they'll do is, instead of buying a bunch of berries, because we go through berries like crazy, is they'll buy the frozen ones. And I don't know, I've seen people say that it worked for them, especially if they'll do yogurt or a smoothie. But as far as kids eating it plain, a lot of them say they can tell, which I can tell when it's been in the freezer. But
I also don't think it's that much cheaper anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
You're probably right. One thing that we do that I think is helpful when you have 2 kids, but could also be used for just one, is I'll half things. And so whether it be that they don't finish it or they just get tired of the flavor, like they've been really into these popsicles lately that are by Sweet Nothings, like a smoothie pop that has very little ingredients in it, no added sugar, and I'll cut it in half, because they don't really want to eat a whole popsicle, but they'll both finish half a popsicle. And so I'm saving that, because toddler food waste is just insane, and I try to save where I can. Another thing I'll do is I'll grab 2 bars, like we love the Cerebelli bars. I'll grab 2 of those, and I'll half of each one of 2 different flavors, so they each get a different flavored half, like a whole bar, but 2 different flavors, so they're more interested in it
Restate
longer.
that. You'll do what?
I will take 2 different flavors, cut them in half, and then give each twin 1/2 each flavor.
Yeah,
so they have cool. They have a whole bar, but it's 2 different flavors, and because they often get like bored with tons of flavors. If they don't finish the pouch, a lot of times I'll just put it back in the fridge within the allotment. I think it's within 24 hours you open it, and I'll feed it to them later or when they're wanting a snack before dinner. Pause before ordering. So this is good to have anyway, because you may change your mind about buying something. But if you pause before ordering something, put it in the cart, come back to it. One, you've had time to think about, like, do I actually want to spend the money on this? Do I want this more than a house? Do I want this more than a trip to Europe? But also, if you leave it in the cart, a lot of times, lots of companies will give you a discount code. They'll send you an email and say you left your cart, and then after a certain amount of time, I think maybe 48 hours. So if it's something that you really want that is going to sell out, you should probably still buy it if it's within your means. But
digital cart,
put it in your cart. And a lot of times they'll come back with a 10% off code or something like that. And then, as we said, this is not financial advice. So you might consider a financial advisor.
Or an accountant or somebody to work with you. Yeah. Some of them only really focus on adding services to your life, but some of them will actually help you. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice.
So if y'all have any random money saving tips with kids, or just in general, really, because everyone should save money, then let us know what it is so we can bring it up or talk about it or just learn with you. Overall, we just wanted this video to be advice, or not advice. It's not advice. We wanted this video to start a discussion with you with money in your home. And like I said, I feel like the non-advice that's out there goes over my head. And so I assume it's going to go over your head too, or maybe it's not feasible to do. And so we hope you found this episode helpful but not advice, and just started getting you and your family thinking about money, especially if you haven't been.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's too early to talk about it. I'm happy that we're doing it. There's probably going to be many more money episodes. But yeah, excited to hopefully help our kids have a healthier relationship with money than we do.
Yeah, for sure. So with that being said, I wanted to give some money resources, whether this be books or, accounts to follow and things like that. And so Money with Katie, I'll put these in the show notes, but Money with Katie is one. I follow her on Instagram, and she does a good job of just going over what things cost, how you can save, things like that you may not have thought about.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a good one. It's been around for a while, but it's a good financial book. It's not really focused on kids specifically, but it is like comparing the habits of somebody who's able to live within their means to habits of people who don't, and the positive and negative effects of either. It's pretty well written. It's a popular one. That's a good one.
A couple other accounts that I follow are the Financial Diet, You Need a Budget, which is YNAB, the budgeting app that we use. They have an account that's good. And then the Budget Mom is a newer one that I've followed. I also mentioned earlier in the episode the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And then the other thing I wrote down, Nick, I don't know if you want to talk about, is the Points Guy.
Yeah, I like the Points Guy. The headline, I like him specifically. I think it's thepointsguy.com, but there's a few different accounts like this. So the point is, if you're going to do something like get credit cards or join rewards programs or whatever within the places you're already going to spend money, I would look at the resources for that specific program or card with a website like the Points Guy. As an example, like there are certain ways to get better point bonuses on credit cards if you're already going to use one. There are certain ways to use your points where they'll give you more value. So it is money that you're earning that a lot of people are not aware that they have and are not aware of how to use. We're taking first and premium class flights to Europe and back with points because we had them already, and I was able to find cool ways to use them through these kinds of resources. So excited about that. But use that resource.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say that, some of these are focused on adults and money and not kids. But I think that that's important too, because how you as an adult, your relationship with money affects your child or your children. Another thing is just time. That, like, I know time is money is a somewhat controversial statement for some people, but I feel like it's true. And treat just like there are more than one way. There's more than one way just like there's more than one way to be rich, as in rich in love and rich in resources and not financially related. There's ways to spend your money wisely that involves your time, and just being smart with that. We can go into that in a whole different episode.
Yeah,
just
no,
being
that's good.
Smart with that. All right. And so to end it, we have an Ask BGMAD question that is actually somewhat related. I was invited to a twin birthday party. How much money do I need to spend? I'm already buying 2 gifts, ...
Am I answering?
You can. We can both answer.
I think you spend the amount of money you would spend on a normal kid's present times 2. I don't think because if you got invited to 2 different kids' birthday parties at 2 different houses on the same day, would you split their value in half? No, they're both people.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think where it's different for people is within your budget. Someone else's budget for a gift for another kid's birthday party, right? So just because you can't spend $50 a person like so-and-so is, doesn't mean that your gift is lesser than in general. I would say whatever you typically spend on a kid's birthday gift, that's what you spend times 2, right? Because
agreed. I thought you were going a different way. Yes,
no,
I agree.
And on the flip side, whenever Cypress and Olive go to a party, which right now they are invited to the same parties, we bring 2 gifts because they're 2 different people. I know that is somewhat controversial within the twin community.
I like that.
I like it too. The other option is to spend buy a bigger gift. With the same monetary
I like the
value.
first option, but I like both.
Yeah. The other thing is for twins, you could also buy a bigger option that's shareable. Don't give them like something that's not shareable, only one of. I would rather spend, if you don't have the budget to do that, just spend less on like a smaller thing versus just one thing that they can't share.
Can you restate that point?
If you're going to a twin party, I would not give them a gift that they can't share. Like, don't give them one sweatshirt or one thing that they can't share. Give them...
If you're giving one gift?
If you're giving one gift. Yeah. Don't give them just like one party microphone that you sing into.
Right.
I'm saying that those aren't really shareable things. If it's like last year for their birthday, our nanny got the twins an activity table that they can play on together. It was one gift, but they can both play on it together.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
That type of thing. So the option there is a bigger gift that they can share or 2 smaller gifts within your budget.
Yeah. Yep. Good.
We can't tell you what to spend on a gift. That's within your family and your budget, but we can say we would bring 2 gifts to a twin birthday party. And when twins are invited to the same party, I would bring 2 gifts.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Well, high five.
More money, podcast later.
More money, podcast later. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. As always, if you have a request, just like this episode was, please shoot us an email at hello@boygirlmom.com or send us a DM at boygirlmom.com, and we would love to chat with you. It doesn't have to be an episode request like this, but it can be a question that we can help you work through, like Ask BGMAD, or if you just want to send us love notes, we'll take that too.
Please do.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Boy, girl, mom, and dad. Gotta wash those butts together. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.